Welcome back, everyone, to Aspire to Lead, where we will be discussing the visions, inspirations, and experiences from top educational leaders. My name is Joshua Stamper, and you can connect with me on Twitter or on Instagram at Joshua_Stamper. Welcome back, Aspire Leaders. Thank you so much for joining us, and happy 2024, as this is coming out right at the first week of January, and I'm so excited for the new year. And even more excited to have this conversation with Dr. Kristina Mattis, who's a phenomenal educator who's serving so many people around this country. And I'm super excited to talk with her because we're going to be touching on a topic I don't think I've had on the podcast about equitable access to necessary technologies, which is a huge topic, one that is so important for so many folks. And Kristina, thank you for joining me today and just spending a little bit of time discussing all the services, your new book, and of course, this important topic on technology equity.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited to chat with you as well, and looking forward to connecting with all your listeners.
Yes. So before we dive into the many topics that I shared out, I would love to hear about your journey because, looking at your bio, it is extensive. You've had a lot of different roles, and I'm super excited about your current position and just learning, what you do within, the equitable piece to make sure that everyone has technology.
Absolutely. Well, visually, for all the visual listeners out there, it's that meme of it's definitely has not been a straight line to get to the peak or the summit. It's all the squiggly lines in the middle. And so my journey professionally has definitely not been linear. It's definitely been all the squiggly lines. And so started out as a high school English teacher. And I would say it was that common thought of, okay, I'm going into education, so teaching it is. And over time, what I realized is that there are so many different facets to education that span beyond the classroom. You need everybody from, yes, the classroom teachers to the assistants to the administrators and the leaders. And then you pull back those onion layers even more, and you've got payroll and finance and HR and IT and ed tech and everybody else in the middle. So it's definitely been a journey going from classroom teacher to teacher on special assignment to rising up the ladder, if you will, in different leadership roles in education. And now I have the distinct honor and privilege to work for the California Department of Education as the Digital Equity Broadband Coordinator, serving all of our K-12 students and making sure that they do have the necessary, robust, reliable, dependable access to the necessary technologies needed to succeed in education. I mean, that's the bottom line. That's your foundation right there. There was a conference recently that I was at, and I don't know if this quote was, coined there or if it maybe transitioned from someplace else, but it was basically the sentiment of internet is not a luxury, it's a necessity.
Yep.
And that's where I, along with my colleagues, champion and advocate for that affordable technology, but not just affordable, but have it be high quality and reliable.
Yeah. No, that's so important. So, well, first off, thank you for touching on the fact that there's so many different positions out there, because that was one of the charges I had creating this podcast was I got to, meet different folks that had these incredible titles with, these experiences and things that they were doing that was making a huge impact. And I was just flabbergasted because I didn't even know they existed. And I know there's so many leaders out there that have certain passions that they want to pursue, but they just don't even know where to look. And, this is one charge that I absolutely love. So let's dive into your profession, your title, if you will. So you had talked about getting that access, and that internet is so important, which is a necessity. I completely agree. So what is it that you do within your role? Like, how are you providing that access to so many folks?
Sure. I would say that it is through and with our partners with the Department of Education. We collaborate so tightly and work in lockstep so that we have that unified message and approach to how we make sure that we get our students what they need. And so one example of that is through the Affordable Connectivity Program, which is a federally funded program that offers discounts to eligible households. So it's looking at expanding that connectivity beyond the schools and into the homes of eligible students and families. And so that is, I would say we are very proud in the state of California that we've reached nearly 55% of our goal to get our households connected. And so we are still striving for that, but we are also looking at how are we going to ensure the sustainability of that funding so that it's not something that goes away, essentially. So that's a huge focus for us with our partners and various organizations. And to that, it's representing the California Department of Education and being the voice who stands up to making sure that our K-12 students are represented and heard. And so that is, I would say, the biggest role that I'm charged with. It's not only helping to inform and raise awareness and educate people, but it's also being the voice for those who don't necessarily have the platform.
So the education piece, is that educating school leaders? Is it districts? Is it the communities or partners? What is it that you're training to make sure folks understand the true problem and how it needs to be resolved?
That's a great question in the sense of, right, who is our target audience? And I would be confident to say that our school districts, our county offices of education are well aware and educated of the various programs that are out there, including ACP, among other grant opportunities for, like gap funding, right? Whatever E-rate may not be able to fund. It's building the trust with our families across the state to let them know that we are here in service for them, no strings attached. And we are really looking at households that are multilingual and making sure that we are equitably communicating and really looking at how we provide our services to our tribal lands as well across the state, especially in Northern California. How do we reach those households, those families that aren't aware, don't know of this opportunity? How do we reach the families that want this affordable connectivity, for instance, yet live in an area where laying the fiber or the cables or the groundwork isn't even possible, not because of they don't want it, it's because of the geography of the land. Do we have to dig through a mountain, for instance, and bedrock or what have you, right? And so right now that's where we are looking at how are we working with utilities, for instance, and other partners to get those rural areas, those hard to reach areas connected.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. You can find out more at teachbetter.com/podcasts. Now let's get back to the episode.
So Kristina, I'm thinking, obviously this podcast is going to folks all over the country and you're based in California, but if someone's listening right now and they're like, you know what, I have the same issue. I have a bunch of, families and students that don't have internet access and I don't know what to do. I know you're like a change management practitioner. You work with systems and protocols and some of the things you're even talking about now, I would have never thought about prior to our conversation. So, what are some steps that they can do to help and assist getting those folks like you said, the essentials of internet and technology access.
I think this is a time where we have to play nice together across the states. We need to take a look at who's succeeded, who's doing this well. Not to say that they did it well right out the door and right on, take one. It's a lot of trial and error, and it takes a lot of effort to get something to success. And so networking and staying connected with the other state departments of education. So I can totally call out that, North Carolina, Kentucky, Tennessee, they've done it and they've done it well. They've been able to break through those hard to connect areas. And so thinking about, while realizing their geography is quite different from the various areas on the West Coast, but are there pockets that we could scale outward? That would be something that I would truly advocate for. Is you're not on an island, you're not in isolation, you shouldn't be doing this by yourself. There are others out there. And so start reaching out, start asking, because the community is a lot smaller than you think. We all know somebody. It is that, Kevin Bacon, 6 degrees of separation. If you don't know someone, someone will know someone, and just start asking.
Oh, I love that. Yes, we're definitely better together. And so it shouldn't matter where you're coming from. Hopefully there's some collaboration occurring to make sure that all students are being assisted. And I absolutely love that. I want to talk about some exciting news because, Kristina, you just had a book launch, and it's called Guiding Transformational Change in Education. I love the title and can't wait to dive into this, because this is what needs to happen, right? We are constantly in change as far as a nation, as far as, our whole system in education. Obviously, we saw a lot of change over the last couple of years due to the pandemic and some other political issues. So I would love to learn about the book and why you wrote it.
This was definitely a multi-year project. And,
I bet.
to say the least. So thank you for sharing that. Yes, the light at the publishing tunnel has been reached. So what I came to realize in that squiggly line of a journey, professional journey, that there were amazing opportunities that presented themselves to me to lead a project or to be part of a project. And, so that's your project management side of things. I had no experience in it, no training in it. There were other opportunities, large, scalable, impactful opportunities that presented themselves to me that required change management skills. I didn't have the training for that, right? And so it was very much on the job learning with mentors and guides who have gone through it before in various capacities. And what I started to realize was that in education, we are significantly credentialed and certificated and professionally developed.
Yes.
And yet, on the other hand, with all the various changes that come about in the field of education, rarely do you find somebody who is trained in project or change management to successfully guide those changes, right? And it doesn't have to be something exhaustive like, a new database implementation, right? Where you're sunsetting disparate systems and bringing in, a one-stop shop model that impacts everybody, right?
Yep.
This could be something like I've heard so many times before where, hey, everybody, it's the new school year. It's time to change your password, right? And what I've heard from those who are charged to implement that password change, they're like, well, nobody listens to us. We sent out the email. and nobody's changed their password. What do we do? Right. And so thinking about, well, you could look at, do people understand why they need to change their password? Are you changing the password just for the sake of changing the password because it's now every 2 weeks? Or are you doing it at a normalized, say, cadence that, hey, everybody, every quarter we're going to change the password or whatever it is, right? I mean, do people know why? And is it expected, or is it coming out of the blue where it might just not be a convenient time for someone to change their password? Is it testing season? Is it just before break? I mean, what's happening, right? And so, and then thinking, are you using the best communication platforms? Maybe email just does not get checked. Right? We know that that's a reality, that sometimes emails just go through the window, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so how are you informing people, raising awareness, scaffolding, maybe a cadence to whatever the need is? And so with all of that, realizing that changes happen in education. We know that change in general, you can't just flip the switch and expect everybody to be on board and internalize the change and sustain it overnight. And then we've got, people who work in education who don't have those skills to manage the project or to guide the change. And so bringing those worlds together came about this book, bringing those two worlds together and sharing my experiences where I did well and admitting the areas where, nope, it really didn't go well that second or third time, and being honest about it because, and being okay with laughing about it now and apologizing to the stakeholders involved as well. So people who have read drafts of the book have come back and said, it's brutally honest and funny, and there's a sense of it's real.
Well, that's what we need. And I think this is a perfect topic for our leaders because, when you get into that leadership position and you may identify some needs that need to be addressed and changed, and then you start that process and maybe it's an initiative, it's always going to have some obstinance of like, no, I'm not looking to do anything different than what I'm doing right now. And so, you're right. Going through, a master's program to become an administrator, or whatever your role may be, you don't really get a whole lot of information about how to be a manager of change. It doesn't really come up. And so you're having to learn on the fly. And I can only imagine in your book, the amount of honesty and transparency that you put in there to really show many examples of how you probably hit against a wall when trying to make change.
Absolutely. And one thing that really just comes to mind is, are you looking to make a change for a truly identified reason that calls for a change? There really is a challenge, an obstacle, a need, and you've engaged those who will be impacted to get their insight as well. So you really have refined that need. Or are you looking to make a change just for the sake of change? And let's make sure that it's the former and not the latter.
Yeah. I mean, if you're coming into a campus and you're just trying to make a name for yourself, or they're going to do it because I'm the leader and my title says principal on it. I mean, those things are not going to go well for you.
Exactly. Yep. Let's bring in some design thinking here.
For sure. So Kristina, I know that you provide services for educators, and I would love to touch on that because I think everything that we're talking about is so important, and I would love for folks to, tap into, what you have to offer. So, for anyone that's interested into reaching out to you, what services do you provide?
In terms of services, I definitely lend consultation opportunities and services to either help guide project management or change management in education. That's That's my target area.
Yep.
And so if anybody would like to reach out and learn more, they can go to www.consulteddevelopment.org, where you can find a bit more information on more of the specific areas that I help others, in addition to a link to my new book.
Yes.
And elsewhere. And then I primarily reside on LinkedIn these days. Twitter is a close second.
Awesome. And we'll definitely touch on that in just a little bit as far as
Sure.
how they can connect with you on social media.
Absolutely.
And of course, everything will be on joshstanford.com. So you'll be able to find all of these different links to connect. And I want to touch on action steps because obviously, we hit on some very important things today. And I love the fact that folks are, tapping in, learning, but I also want them to take action. So for those who are listening right now, if there's something they could do tomorrow or next week to enhance their leadership journey, what would you advise them to do?
I would, and this might take some time, but take a step back and think about, what is it that you stand for? What do you value? What are you not willing to bend on? And use that as your guide, your moral compass. And then think about, how can you achieve what you value? And like I said before, reach out and ask for ideas, and start, just play nice with everybody, play well together, because we are not alone on an island. There are more of us.
For sure. And I've said this on the podcast before, and many folks have said it in their presentation, but the smartest person in the room is the room. So make sure you're reaching out and collaborating and getting that insight. And yeah, Kristina, you have, for anyone that's watching, and you can be watching on YouTube on my channel, Joshua Stamper, or on the Teach Better Team page. But Kristina has her Twitter handle up on the screen here. But for those who are listening on the podcast platforms, we just let them know how they can connect with you on social media.
Sure, absolutely. LinkedIn is really the best way, and that's also Kristina Mattis. And then, like you said, Twitter's the next best thing for sure. And that's where my main networks are.
That's awesome. And like I said before, so everything will be on my website, including the link to pick up her brand new book. And I'm so excited for that journey to be done for you. I know the process of writing a book is so strenuous, and just kudos to you for getting that together, launching it. And I'm so excited too about just the impact it's going to have on so many folks, because change is difficult in any setting that you're in professionally. So, as for aspiring or current leader, I hope everyone is going to jump on the book, Guiding Transformational Change in Education, because we all need help in this area to make sure that as a building, as a group of folks, that we're all moving in the same direction. And Kristina, I just want to thank you so much for spending just a little bit of time with me today, talking about equity, technology, and of course, changing in education, which is so difficult to do.
Well, thank you. It's been a real pleasure of being here with you.